Hi everyone, welcome to my A-Level Biology Extended Lecture Series. In this lesson, we will explore the interrelationship of photosynthesis and respiration in plants. In plants, photosynthesis takes place during the day, producing organic carbon compound by using CO2. So there is a net use of or net uptake of CO2. So this CO2 may have been released by respiration, or more precisely aerobic respiration, which occur both during the day and night. And we do know that during aerobic respiration, there is a net release of CO2 or carbon dioxide. There is a stage at which all the carbon dioxide released by aerobic respiration is absorbed by the plant during photosynthesis. So there is no net release or net uptake of CO2. So at this stage, the plant reaches an equilibrium between the CO2 released by aerobic respiration and the use of CO2 during photosynthesis. And this is known as the plant compensation point. So what is meant by compensation point? The compensation point is defined as the light intensity at which the rate of CO2 produced by aerobic respiration equal the rates of CO2 absorbed during photosynthesis, particularly during Calvin cycle. Let us look at this graph. Again, when or at compensation point here, compensation point is the light intensity where there is no net uptake of CO2 or net release of CO2. So you can see that below this light intensity, okay, below the compensation point, the light intensity, and the light intensity is too low, and we can see that there is an increase of CO2 release, indicates that the rate of aerobic respiration is higher than the rate of photosynthesis. So therefore, there is a net release of CO2 during aerobic respiration. And we do know that at this moment, the rate of photosynthesis is low, so the uptake of CO2 is low. So overall, there is a net release of CO2. However, above the compensation point, or the light intensity above the compensation point, we can see that there is an increase in CO2 uptake, indicates that the rate of photosynthesis is higher than the rate of respiration. So therefore, there is a net increase or the net uptake of CO2. Okay, so what's happened here? When we have the net increase or net uptake of CO2, so CO2 incorporates into the Calvin cycle, and therefore we have the net gain in sugar due to the increase in the rate of photosynthesis, or in other words, the rate of photosynthesis is higher than respiration. So you can think in this way. At this moment, above the compensation point, the light intensity increases, or high light intensity increases the rate of photosynthesis, but not the rate of respiration, because what? Because the rate of respiration is not affected by the light intensity. However, with the increase of the rate of photosynthesis, or the rate of photosynthesis is higher than the rate of respiration, so therefore there is a net gain in the production of the photosynthetic products. So these products will be stored in the plant. However, if there is an increase of CO2 release, this indicates that the rate of respiration is higher than the rate of photosynthesis. There will be a net loss of sugar or photosynthetic product. Because why? When the rate of respiration is higher, we use up, or plant will use up the photosynthetic compound. So at compensation point, we know that there is no net gain or loss of photosynthetic product. So if the light intensity increase above the compensation point, the production of photosynthetic product exceeds their use. So these excess products are stored by the plant and will be converted to yield. And this is good for farmer because farmer can earn more money or income through high yield production. We have two types of plant. Okay, so one is termed as sun plant, another is termed as shade plant. So what actually is sun plants? So sun plant, they have more palisade mesophyll. So from this diagram, you can see that they have multiple layers of mesophyll cells with the chloroplast. And this will help them to absorb greater amounts of light energy. And because they need to maintain a thicker leaf, so they have higher respiration rate. And because of this, they achieve their compensation point under high light intensity. Why? Because they're exposed to the light, they can receive more light intensity, so their compensation point generally will be higher compared to another type of plant, which is a shade plant. So overall, you can see that sun plant, they have more palisade mesophyll, they can absorb more light energy, so they have higher rates of photosynthesis. But however, to maintain their thickness, they must have higher respiration rate, okay? Because more cells, more layer of cells. So with higher respiration rate and higher rates of photosynthesis, their compensation point will can only be achieved at high light intensity. So on the other hand, the plant adapted to low light intensity is known as shade plant. And they have fewer mesophyll cells. It makes sense because they have low light intensity, no point for them to have many mesophyll cells. So with low number of mesophyll cells, the amount of ATP required for the leaf formation and maintenance will be lower. So you can see that in this diagram shows that the number of mesophyll cells layer is much lower or fewer compared to the sun plant. And because they have smaller or lower number of the layer, so therefore they have a lower rate of respiration. And because of this, they reach their compensation point at lower light intensity compared to the sun plant. Because why? Lower light intensity, lower respiration rate, definitely the rates, the compensation point will be lower. So this graph actually summarizes the differences between the sun plant and the shade plant. So you can see that for sun plants, the compensation point actually is higher compared to the shade plant, okay? Because of the light intensity. Sun plant adapted, sun plant is adapted for the high light density. So definitely the light compensation point is higher. However, for the shade plant, the light intensity is low. So they achieve the light compensation point at much lower light intensity. So from the graph, you can see that there is another parameter or measurement, which is known as the light saturation point. And this is particularly important because the light saturation point describes the stage at which any further increases in light intensity no longer enhance the rates of photosynthesis. And this is very, very important. Why? Because if we supply additional light energy, which is beyond or at this light saturation point or above the light saturation point, this won't help the plants to store or to carry out higher rates of photosynthesis, because at light saturation point, other factor may act as limiting factor. So no point for us to increase the light intensity, and it won't generate extra income or increase the yield for the plant. So we do know that another limiting factor prevents any additional increase. And at the saturation point, the rate of photosynthesis has reached its maximum level for the environmental conditions. Okay, or these specific environmental condition. And with that, we have come to the end of this lesson. Hope you found it helpful and easy to follow. If you have any question, feel free to drop them in the comment sections. See you in the next lesson. Have a great day.